Okay, today we're going to talk about topic 2.3, which is people and markets. The last topic, 2.2, remember we focused on invention and innovation and those processes. Now we're going to talk about how that stuff is brought to the market. First, remember light background. This is particularly important for people taking the IB tests in 2016 or thereafter. Terminology is stakeholders in invention and innovation. Remember, there is a collaborative generation of knowledge, and it's when you have collaboration like this, you have a lot more efficiency and you have a lot more diversity. And with that, you get the reliability and stability within an organization. Particularly means you're hitting all market sectors. You're hitting lots of different possible demographics, so it's beneficial to the organization. You still need to get outside opinions, and that's where research comes into play. Stakeholders, the term stakeholder actually refers to not just the market, but also the employees and the investors and the management and everyone involved with the company. So stakeholders is actually a pretty broad term. As a designer, you need to be aware of not only the market, but also the company that you are designing for, and also possible policies that go along with the industry itself, standards that are needed to be followed, and also policies that the company itself might put into play. Linking this to TOK, design favors collective wisdom. Are there other areas where you need to value collaborative thinking? Where else are you going to be thinking collaboratively? Design is one of the obvious ones, but it occurs in other sectors as well. And then the aim of applying your knowledge of stakeholders and invention and innovation, you need to, as an inventor, a lot of times you're going to need to act as the entrepreneur and the product champion. Remember last time we talked about what the product champion was, and how the product champion is someone who really kind of goes out there and tries to make a product popular. Steve Jobs was a great example that I cited last time. There's other people who have filled in that role as well. Those roles take quite a bit of preparation and learning for someone to be truly successful at them. Now let's define a few terms here. First, we're going to say technophile, and this is someone who loves new technology just for the sake of new technology. There's my little picture of a technophile dude right there. He's got a million gadgets, stuff hanging out of his ears, stuff on cords on the ground in his pockets, everything. He's someone who loves technology, as you can obviously see. Techno-cautious, which is a term that I had never heard before IB. This is someone who might take a little bit of convincing to adopt new technology. And then technophobe is someone who doesn't adopt new technology and often will avoid using new technology. A lot of times your grandparents or maybe your parents can fall into this category. Next time you see him, ask Mr. Fisher if he has a cell phone yet, because last I checked, he didn't have a cell phone. Explain how people can be broadly classified according to their reactions to technological change. That's what that last slide was all about. What are their reactions to it? And they vary based on personal circumstances and what their values are. You also need to consider first order and second order effects. For example, first order effect is you getting the device and you having the device and you being able to use the device. A second order effect is you thinking about, okay, where does this device come from? So I buy this new iPhone that just came out, and they're super cool and they're super popular, but they were manufactured by underpaid, overexploited workers in China who are making terrible amounts of money compared to westernized workers and unionized workers. So that would be really a second order effect. Are you going to not buy the iPhone because you don't feel comfortable about those living conditions and those working conditions, or are you going to let the first order take effect, or first order effect take precedence here? You'll have both negative and positive first order and second order effects. It's not always just negative second order effects. Corporate strategy. This, when they say corporate strategy here, IB is really referring to the research and development strategy. And this is a quote taken directly from the IB guide: long-term aims and objectives of a company and ways of achieving them by allocation of resources. When you consider research and development, you have three basic strategies. You have pioneering, you have imitative, and then you have kind of a hybrid between the two of them, which we'll just call a hybrid strategy. The pioneering strategy. This is being first, ahead of the competitors. You develop a new type of product first. You put a lot of money into research and development, but you often have the potential for the largest gains. It requires a big commitment, financial and personnel-wise, to research and development, which can be pretty expensive. Pioneering company a lot of times will need to be very financially secure and requires those product champions to push those new ideas. Without that, then you might develop a new product, but it's never going to take off the ground. Think about Sony or Apple companies and what pioneering developments they've made. I would say Sony is probably more of a pioneering company, or at least they were back in the 80s when they came out with the Walkman, than Apple was. The iPod wasn't the first of anything, really. It was, however, one of the more innovative kind of combination of different developments, but it wasn't really the first in anything. So Apple kind of sat back for a little bit, and I would classify them as more of a hybrid research and development strategy. We'll get more into that in a little bit. Imitative. Imitative strategy aims to not put quite as much money in research and development, and a lot of times they are considered kind of the copycats. I take advantage of research and development that's been invested by other companies, and it's a lot less risky because you're not, as a company, you're not spending direct dollars in research and development, but you still gain all the benefits of that, but maybe at a slightly slower pace. Sometimes companies that use imitative strategies can be more successful than the pioneers. Example here is 3Com and their Palm Pilot line. Palm Pilot was kind of the grandfather of all these smartphones. These were these original touchscreen PDAs. Back then they were capacitive screens, so you had to use a stylus. You couldn't really use your finger easily. And they were initially just black and white screens. I have one sitting in a box right next to my desk here. They run off of a couple of AAA batteries. They last for quite a long time. You don't have an internet connection on them, but they can be tethered, or not tethered, but they're connected to your computer to upload and download memos and email and all that sort of stuff. And they were very innovative, but when you look at it, where's Palm now? I mean, they were bought out by HP a few years ago, and now HP isn't doing so well. So Palm as a company did not do well, but they were extremely innovative and a very major pioneering company. Hybrid strategies are a combination of both imitative and pioneering strategies. So this is actually kind of probably the best balance between the two of them. You will imitate what some companies do, and you'll develop your own. Usually the most successful companies employ hybrid strategies. Market penetration. This is where a company enters a market in which products currently exist. A really solid example of this is the Xbox. Before Microsoft decided to start developing the Xbox, there were already consoles. The consoles started, back in the late 70s. So Microsoft definitely wasn't the first to the game here, but when they came out there, currently at the time, there were already Sony, Nintendo, and Sega products out there. A little fun fact here, originally Sony was going to join up with Nintendo to develop the PlayStation, but Nintendo backed out of it at the last possible moment and kind of left Sony holding the bag. So in 1992, Nintendo decided to stop production on the Sony Nintendo PlayStation, or as they called it, the SNES CD, and they left Sony with all of that hardware. And this is actually a prototype for the original kind of crossover Nintendo Sony PlayStation. If you look at it, it's got the Super Nintendo controllers, but it's marketed PlayStation. It's a disc machine, but this never was actually developed. This is just a single prototype. What do you think would have happened had they joined forces? What would the console gaming market today look like if Sony and Nintendo were working together? Strategy that a company could use to enhance their market penetration would basically be to consider both diversification and market development. Diversification is developing new products, and market development is finding new markets for existing products. An interesting example of that is when Netflix came to the Nintendo Wii. The Nintendo Wii was released in 2006. I believe it took until 2009 or 2010 for Netflix to originally come out on the Wii. Do you think it helped Nintendo more or it helped Netflix more? Do you think this is an example of diversification on Nintendo's part or market development on Netflix's part? Well, when you look at it, it really was, it targeted non-buying customers I should say non-subscribing customers in that end. So it was really market development on the part of Netflix. They were targeting Nintendo Wii owners. It wasn't the other way around. It wasn't the Nintendo targeting Netflix subscribers, because honestly, at the time that came out, there were lots of other options for people who wanted to watch Netflix on their TVs. They could, get the Sony PS3 or the Xbox 360 and be able to watch high definition. The original Nintendo Wii did not support high definition, so really Netflix got the better end of that deal, and Nintendo did not. Because if you look at the sales records back then, Nintendo Wii sales kind of started off strong and then they kind of tapered off. Each of those little spikes, that's the fourth quarter spike that always happens around Christmas time when people are buying more and more products. But as you can see, the Wii is basically kind of tapered off. The Wii U is probably not doing a whole lot better from what I've heard. Now, how does a company undertake market development? In this case, take a look at nylon. It was originally developed for parachutes, but nylon is not just used for parachutes anymore. Nylon is probably in most of your clothing right now. You're probably wearing nylon, but it's involved in just about anything. It can be made into a fabric, but nylon can also be a solid plastic as well. Another example is Lucozade, which was basically it's a British kind of Gatorade thing. It was originally marketed for sick people, and then they rebranded it and started targeting athletes when Gatorade came out. So that's kind of what the advertising looks like right now. That's what their bottle looks like, and originally it looked kind of like that. This is the old Lucozade advertisements, pretty much the same formulation, only they marketed it towards people who were not feeling well. If you look at this advertising, it says invaluable in sickness. Well, yeah, Gatorade might be the same way, but that wasn't their marketing strategy that they went for. Lucozade, however, back in the day, that's what they did. Product development. Not really sure what they mean by here, but basically, if you want to know what product development is, well, that's kind of the title of the class. But if you look at topic 1, it goes through the whole design cycle, which is the whole product development cycle. Describe one example of how a company undertakes product development. Really, kind of the big thing here is adding new products to an existing brand. There are many brands out there that look to expand things. If you look at, snack food products, these companies that develop candies and snack foods, they're constantly coming up with new formulations, new types. They're going from Snickers bars to ice cream Snickers bars to king size Snickers bars to peanut butter Snickers bars. All of those are all different variations and developing a product within the same line, basically. And you look at Olive Garden, how many different types of noodles can you get there? Well, I would guess hundreds. I got no idea. And they keep coming out with more of them, but they're all still essentially boiled dough. Divine diversification. This is when a company specifically creates new products or services to enter different markets. A lot of times, primarily, it requires the company to develop new skills where they might not already have any. Kind of a current example of that is Staples. Staples is struggling up against companies online like Amazon and retail companies and storefronts that are cheaper than them like Walmart and Target. So one of the things that they're looking at is entering the 3D printing market. They are experimenting with having 3D printing services in the stores. As of right now, it's only available in 3 stores, 2 in California and 1 in New York City. But it looks like it's a direction that they're probably going to try to go in, where they allow 3D printing to actually happen in the store, so people can come in with digital files and use their machines and actually print them out. Now they're entering in a different market where they're going to be competing against places called maker spaces, which are like laboratories that are being set up, sometimes using public funds to allow people to come in and 3D print and manufacture their own designs. So I don't know how well this is going to work out for Staples, because they're going from competing with different companies to now also competing with essentially nonprofit organizations who inherently are going to be charging much less than Staples will. Define market sector and market segmentation. Segmentation specifically refers to the division of a market into individual sectors. Usually this is done by demographic. It can be done by age, can be done by race, can be done by geography. I mean, people who are in Ohio are going to be spending a lot more money on heavier jackets than people in Florida. So would a company that sells heavy winter coats do much marketing in Florida? Probably not. That's an example of market segmentation at work. Again, gender is another separation that markets can be separated by. Like I just said, consider age, income, lifestyle, geographical location, and other ways to separate and segment the market. Robust design, we kind of touched upon it in the last video, and this is kind of a flexible design that can be adapted into multiple markets. Robust designs can evolve into multiple product families. This is an image from the first patent for the pencil with an eraser on it. Pencils existed before this, but they had separate erasers. This is the first idea to take a rubber eraser and actually attach it to the back of the pencil. And once this was done, that product developed many different ways. Now you have, pencils like this. You have different degrees of hardness, different types of erasers, different colors, designs of the actual pencil, wooden shaft part. You have mechanical pencils, lots of different options, and that robust design evolved into many different product lines. Example in technology of a robust design would be the Motorola StarTAC, which came out in 1996. It was the first flip phone. After this thing came out, then pretty much every cell phone manufacturer had to get a flip phone on the market, because it was considered the most ergonomic and most efficient way to create a phone that would fit into a pocket, and it would protect the buttons, the keys, the screens, the microphone. Everything would be folded up into a nice kind of clamshell design, like the laptop that I mentioned in the last presentation. Also, the Atari 2600, that was actually the first cartridge-based video game system. Before then, video game systems were you bought one system and it had one game. That was pretty much the way it was. 2600 was it was advertised as having 2,600 different games that you can play on this one system. So you bought one system and then you bought different cartridges. Imagine what it would be like if you had to buy a different system for each game that you wanted to play. Your TV cabinet would be quite a bit more full, if you will, of all of the different consoles that would be required.